Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio has introduced actual legislation to shut down, to literally make it illegal for anybody from the Department of Defense, any personnel, to even communicate with anybody from the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, MRFF. MRFF.org is the website. If you haven't been there recently, it's certainly worth checking out. On the line with us is the president of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, Mikey Weinstein. Mikey, it's been a while since we've talked. Thanks so much for dropping back in with us. Is the religious freedom of our service members at risk?
Tom, it is. And by the way, thank you so much for everything that you do. The Fourth Estate is incredibly critical to clean up the mess that, of course, democracy is. That's a necessary evil with democracy. You do a wonderful job. And I know you've supported us for many, many years. We've been doing this for the better part of a fifth of a century. When we found out about this legislation that Congressman Mike Turner, of course, a fundamentalist Christian nationalist congressman from the Dayton, Ohio area, had put into the National Defense Authorization Act of 2024, basically the Pentagon funding bill, the largest part of the federal budget, we thought it was a joke, like from The Onion or something. We could not believe it. To the best of our research, including talking to members of Congress, this has never happened before in the history of our country, where a bill has gone in attempting to assassinate by legislation, Tom, a well-respected, large civil rights organization. They've never done this to Planned Parenthood. They haven't done it to the ACLU, Black Lives Matters. But this would make it a felony under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is part of Title 10 of the U.S. Code, which this legislation is trying to amend, for anyone even to reach out for help from us. So we had just recently, last week, went over 84,000 active duty, reserve, guard, and veteran members of the U.S. military whom we represent. Amazingly enough, about 95%, Tom, are actually Christians being persecuted for not being Christian enough. This not only violates the First Amendment in two ways, freedom of speech and certainly the right to petition your government for grievances, it also specifically violates what's called Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3, and I'm sure, Tom, you're well aware of what a bill of attainder is. You can't pass legislation trying to convict somebody or an organization, and depriving them of due process. We were stunned, and we were even further stunned to find out that it passed, and all the Democrats on the House Armed Services Committee, because now it goes to the full House, they all voted for it, and they're claiming that, well, we didn't know what was in there. It's a big bill, which, of course, is bullshit.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We can't use language like that, Mikey, on the air.
It's bull feces.
Yeah. There you go. So we beeped you for a second, but
okay.
I totally, and apologies to anybody who's offended, but I totally get it. So give us for people who, because it has been a while since you've been on, and unfortunately, we should have you on more frequently. For people who may not be familiar with exactly what the Military Religious Freedom Foundation does, and why you have earned the ire of a congressman, a Christian nationalist congressman, what I refer to as Christian fascists. Tell us about MRFF.org.
Right, and it's not just Turner. There are plenty of other folks supporting this that are also what we like to say Christian fascists or fundamentalist Christian nationalists / dominionists. We started around in the early 2000s. Our goal is to do one thing, and that's to protect the wall separating church and state, Tom, where all the nuclear weapons, drones, conventional weapons, and laser-guided weapons are, the Defense Department. We've grown. We now represent clients from all 17 national security agencies like the CIA, NSA, DIA, and 14 others. We also represent members of the Coast Guard, which are technically not in DOD. They're under the Department of Homeland Security. And the U.S. Maritime Service, particularly the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. We've been in the news a lot for that one. We forced them to take a giant painting of Jesus down from a room where they have mandatory meetings, including honor boards, where they could kick midshipmen out of the academy. And they're part of the Department of Transportation. So our job is to protect the sanctity of the separation of church and state in the Defense Department and these other agencies. And it's bad enough when you find Christian fascism, as you called it, Tom, or nationalism, in the sewage workers, the police forces, firefighters, legislatures, and education. But at least they don't have weapons of mass destruction. And the degree to which fundamentalist Christian nationalism has permeated into the very fabric of the Pentagon is almost unfathomable. And yes, we view it as a badge of courage that they're so afraid of us, they're trying to give us a headshot, execute us by legislation, and these Christian fascist congressmen snuck it into the Pentagon funding bill about a week and a half ago. There was a voice vote. It's called en bloc, and all the Democrats voted for it too. I've spoken to several of them. They said, Mikey, we're sorry. We were told by the chairman of the committee, who of course is a Republican, because the Republicans control the House, Tom, that there was nothing sneaky in there. When the Exxon Valdez crashed, the captain was drunk and asleep. It's still his fault. And all of these congressmen, as you know very well, Tom, have large staffs whose entire job is to look at anything related to this. They all have a national defense, staffer. This is their job. Right. It's like going to a restaurant and saying, "Hey, I'm gluten free. If I get gluten, I could have a fatal attack. Make sure that whatever you send me has, from the kitchen doesn't have it in there." And then they serve a dish and you start choking, and the waiter goes, "Hey, I didn't cook it. I don't know what's going on." Well, the congressman that put this in, the Republican Christian fascists, they cooked this up. They cooked this legislation up. Yeah. And now we have to engage the process because the Democrats were clueless it was in there. If it goes to the whole House, unless we raise the issue high enough, they'll vote it through to the Senate. Unless we raise it with the U.S. Senate, they'll vote it through to the White House. Unless we raise it, to Biden, they'll have it go through. And it's they couldn't under this legislation. You're going to love this. Even responding to a Freedom of Information Act request, and we file those all the time, generally from our research director, Ms. Chris Rada, they couldn't even respond to that. It is egregious, it is hideous, and it's an example of how far Christian nationalism has infiltrated our country, particularly all of the warriors.
Yeah, and not only that, a lot of these end-timers, these Christo-fascists, are millennialists. And there's other words to describe it. They believe that we are in the end times, and that a requirement of the end times is that there be this massive war that kills most human beings, so that the good Christians can be raptured and then return and can control the earth with Jesus and all this kind of stuff. And these are not the people that you want controlling your nuclear weapons. And and that's the work that you're doing, is to try to not specifically prevent those people, but at least prevent the open evangel. Back 20 years ago, I think you came on this program and we talked about your son's experience at the Air Force Academy as the thing that got you going on this. So this legislation is out of committee, but it has not yet had a floor vote in the House. And I went over to MRFF.org here before you came on today, and noticed that you've got a big thing right up at the top: sign our petition. And let me recommend to everybody MRFF.org. Get over there and do that. If this thing passes, I'm assuming that you're gonna sue probably directly to the Supreme Court, claiming that it's a bill of attainder.
Right. We have that, and also a violation of the freedom of speech and the freedom to petition your government for grievances. Tom, these are foundational aspects of being Americans that certainly every member of the military deserves. And we have a litigation team that will go directly into federal court. We feel we're going to win it, but if we get one of those nearly 300 judges that Trump appointed, who knows? Look what's happened in this country. I mean, we have a chasm the size of a galaxy, and you deal with it every day on your wonderful show. We have to fight it every day. We get threats in every day. We got one on the website this morning that we sent to law enforcement saying that our days are numbered. We understand how this goes. And yes, we get the fact that we're the only civil rights organization, apparently in the history of the U.S. Congress, to be targeted for extinction. And that's a distinction from our perspective that we feel is a badge of honor. But at the same time, it doesn't matter if we're not here. It costs a lot of money. We're not asking for donations. We're a nonprofit, so everything you donate is a tax deduction. But if you go to, again, it's MRFF, Military Religious Freedom Foundation, MRFF.org. I'm not the best with computers. It took me 15 seconds to sign the petition. All you have to put in is your name and your email address, because this is the fear that the Democratic congressmen have told me because of the mess up. Either we raise the awareness of this in the House or it gets voted to the Senate. And then the Democrats barely control the Senate. And if we don't have the awareness raised there, it'll go to the president, and this could actually go through. We will sue immediately. We will sue aggressively and as viciously, legally, ethically, and morally as we can. We're grateful to you for giving us the time. I don't know whether or not they've been able to put up MRFF.org, but you can help us. Okay, 15 seconds of your time to get it in there. But think just for a second. We live in this wonderful country. We celebrated its birthday yesterday, and we are trying to extinguish an organization a civil rights organization representing over 84,000 members of the U.S. military and veterans, most of whom just happen to be Christians, again, being beaten up for not being Christian enough. It is unfathomable that this is happening. And we know that Congressman Turner hates us. 7 years ago, we embarrassed him in his district when we forced Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Tom, a big Air Force base in his district in Dayton, Ohio, to take off a Christian Bible on what was supposed to be a secular POW MIA table in the local hospital. We have him on video where he said how horrible this was. And then, listen, this 7 years ago, you're going to love this, Tom. He actually said, we may have to pass legislation to stop this kind of stuff.
Wow.
And, in the First Amendment, everybody loves free speech until they hear something that they don't like. And all we are trying to make it clear is that when you judge a member of the military and you take a look at their level of honesty, compassion, courage, intelligence, and bravery, and you decide that the number one metric about that is to determine whether or not they subscribe to this fundamentalist Christian nationalism, fascism, that is the end of days. And you talked about Christian end times eschatology. Do you know that they're promised a 200-mile river, 4.5 feet deep, filled with nothing but the blood of those that their version of weaponized Jesus spills at the Battle of Armageddon? That's a pretty hard graphic to deal with, but those are their numbers. So we understand it. And look, we don't care about anybody's religious faith. We only care about the time, the place, and the manner in which someone in the military or the other agencies we represent feel that they have the right to deploy their faith. But when your military superior is proselytizing you with this Christian fascism, get the hell, I hope I can say hell, get the hell out of my face, sir or ma'am, is not an option for you. So they come to us to do it. And yes, we're aggressive. And yes, we're expeditious. People don't want to wait for their constitutional rights, Tom. You know this.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Mikey Weinstein, the president of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. Get over there, MRFF.org. This is a real petition. This isn't some, one of these fancy fundraising things like politicians throw at you. And also contact your members of Congress, 202-224-3121. We'll get you to your House member and both of your senators. Mikey, I wish you the very best. Thanks so much for dropping by.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate everything.
Thank you.